So on today's session, we are going to discuss about the blood circulatory system in human body, and this has been targeted mainly for the C operating student, and we will also discuss few of the MCQ question at the end of the session. And on drawing the short overview of the blood, it is a fluid connective tissues that is responsible to perform the different type of the uh, that circulatory as well as protective function uh, in the human. And the average amount of the blood in a person is about 5.5 liter. This is approximately to 8% of the total blood, uh, total weight of the person. But this varies according to the person's weight as well, and so many other factors. And on talking about the composition of the blood is mainly composed of the plasma and the blood cells. Plasma occupies about 55% of the blood volume, and the blood cells occupy the remaining 45%. This plasma is further composed of 90% of the waters, and remaining 10% is occupied by other substances like plasma proteins and other gaseous substances as well. In plasma proteins, there might be albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. They have their own respective functions, like albumin is mainly responsible to maintain the plasma osmotic pressure, and fibrinogen is responsible to perform the clotting action of the blood during the time of the injury or during the time of the hemorrhage. And like this globulin is responsible to produce the immunoglobulins or antibodies during the time of the infection in coordination with other blood cells, which we will discuss later. And in blood cells as well, this blood cell is mainly composed of red blood cells, WBC, and platelets. So on specifically talking about the red blood cells, these red blood cells are also called erythrocytes. The shape of the RBCs varies uh, according to the different situation. But if we talk about the normal condition, it shape is either biconcave or circular in shape. The normal lifespan of the RBCs from 90 to 120 days, and its a normal concentration in an adult person is about 4.5 to 5 millions per mm cube of the blood, but it also varies according to the genders as well. And these red blood cells are produced by the bone marrow, but in the embryonic period, these RBCs are produced by the liver as well. And once they complete their lifespan, that is 120 days, these RBCs are destroyed either by the spleen or in the liver. And this RBCs consist of a red colored pigment which is called hemoglobin. This hemoglobin is responsible to carry the uh, oxygen molecules or oxygenated blood from the uh, lungs to the different body tissues, and this will provide oxygen to the respective tissues so that the normal cell can perform the metabolic pathway, and it helps to provide energy so that the cell can perform its different type of the cellular function. But if the hemoglobin level in the RBC goes down due to different factors, like if there is due to less intake of the iron, or there is excessive hemolysis, then that can lead to the reduced amount of the hemoglobin in the blood. This condition is known as anemia. And in the higher altitudes, in the mountainous region, the uh, partial pressure of the oxygen in the atmosphere is very less. So to compensate that reduced partial pressure of oxygen in the atmosphere, the number of RBCs in the people living in these regions are higher, so that the RBC become able to provide sufficient amount of the oxygen in every body cells. And talking about the white blood cells, these are also called leukocytes, and their lifespan is about 2 weeks. The average concentration in adult person is about 4,000 to 11,000 per mm cube of the blood. And the major function of the white blood cells or leukocytes is to uh, provide protection from the different type of the infections or pathogens like a virus, a bacteria, etc. And if the white blood cells are produced in excessive amount due to the different factors, like if there is the excessive use of the chemotherapy or radiotherapy or toxic drugs, then the normal stem cells that produce the white blood cells, they might get mutated, and that results in the excessive production of the white blood cells. This abnormal condition is known as leukemia or blood cancer. So on talking about the classification of the white blood cells, these white blood cells are also classified into the granulocytes and agranulocytes. The granulocytes contain granules in their cytoplasm or the cytosols, whereas these granules are absent in the agranulocytes. These granulocytes are further divided into the eosinophils, basophils, and the neutrophils. And similarly, agranulocytes are divided into the lymphocytes and monocytes. Though it's not necessary to discuss in detail about all of these type of the WBC in detail. I will discuss a few of the important points, like these eosinophils are released mainly during the time of the allergic reaction or during the time of the helminthic reactions, helminthic infection. Likewise, these basophils are released if there is some types of the tumors of the blood is going, and similarly, the other type of the these WBCs are released during the time of the infection by other different type of the pathogens or disease-causing agents. And talking about their numbers, these neutrophils are the most numerous type, but they are smallest in their size. And these basophils, these are the uh, found in very smallest number, and these monocytes are the uh, most largest type of the WBCs. These lymphocytes are also further divided into other subtypes like T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes, which under activation by different type of the uh, agent, which we call the antigens, then they can further activate it to form plasma cells, and that will produce the antibodies. But this concept is not required here. And another type of the blood cell is the platelets, which is also called the thrombocytes. The general shape of the platelets is also variable, but these platelets don't have their own nucleus, and the lifespan of these platelets is about 2 to 3 days, and the average number of these platelets in an adult person is about 2 to 4 lakhs per mm cube of the blood. These platelets are colorless structure, and they are also found in the bone marrow like other type of the blood cells. These are the smallest blood cells, and the main function of these platelets is to carry out the clotting function during the time of injury or hemorrhage or excessive blood loss. So up to this state, we discussed about the different types of the blood cells and plasma. Now we will discuss about the other component of the circulatory system, that is heart. So this heart is a four-chambered organ, and this is made up of a specialized type of the muscle, which is called cardiac muscle. It is called specialized because this cardiac muscle is found only in the heart, not in any other part of the body. This heart is covered by the pericardium. It is a double-layered membrane, and this double-layered membrane consists of pericardial cavity, which consists of pericardial fluid. This pericardial fluid is responsible to uh, protect the heart from the different type of the external injuries. On discussing about the general gross or morphological structure of the heart, this heart is mainly uh, made up of two atrium, this right atrium, left atrium, and two ventricles, right ventricles and left ventricles. In between these right and left atrium, there is presence of the interarterial septum, and in between these two ventricles, there is presence of interventricular septum. These two atria and these two ventricles are separated from each other by the atrioventricular septum. And many times the pulse are present in between these atrium and ventricles to prevent the uh, uh, bidirectional flow of the bloods, and which we will clarify later as well. On talking about the general mechanism, how the blood is flown in the heart, there you can see the superior vena cava that brings the deoxygenated or impure blood from the upper extremities of our body, like forelimbs, uh, facial region, brain, uh, and similarly the inferior vena cava that brings the impure blood from the lower extremities or below a heart, uh, like in the abdominal region, in the pelvis region, or from the lower extremities. Then once this impure blood arrives at the right atrium, and once this right atrium is completely filled up by the blood, then there will be a contraction of this right atrium, and due to that contraction there will be the opening of this tricuspid valve, so that the blood will drain into the right ventricles. And again, whenever this right ventricles is completely filled up with the impure blood, there will be the contraction of this right ventricles. At the time of its contraction, there will be the closure of this tricuspid valve, so that the blood from the right ventricle won't be taken again in the uh, right atrium, whereas this will be drained in the pulmonary artery by the opening of these three semilunar valves of the pulmonary artery. Through this pulmonary artery, the impure blood is taken in the lungs. In the lungs, the oxygen is inspired, and this oxygen is in the alveoli, but the impure blood, that is the blood containing carbon dioxide, is in the blood vessels, and the concentration of carbon dioxide in the blood vessel is higher than the concentration of the carbon dioxide in the lungs alveoli, so that the carbon dioxide will get diffused in the alveoli and it will be expelled outside. Similarly, the concentration of the oxygen is higher in the alveoli than in the blood vessels. So, due to that concentration gradient, the oxygen will be uh, diffused into the blood, and the blood is then called pure blood. It is oxygenated blood, and this pure or oxygenated blood is taken to the this left atrium by the pulmonary veins. Through these pulmonary veins, the oxygenated blood is taken in the left atrium. And whenever this left atrium is filled up with the oxygenated blood, then there will be the contraction of this left ventricle, so that there will be the opening of the mitral valve, and the drainage of this blood in the uh, left ventricle will occurs. Again, whenever this left ventricle is completely filled up with the pure blood, then there will be the contraction of this ventricle. There will be the systolic phase of this left ventricles, so that there will be the opening of the three similar valves present in the opening of the aorta. At that time, there is the closure of the mitral valve or bicuspid valve, so that the blood won't again taken back in the left atrium, and through this aorta the blood is distributed to different part of the body by the different branches of this aorta. This picture is clarifying the normal pathway of blood distribution through the different branches of the aorta. Whenever this aorta goes further down, this gives rise to branches which are called arteries, and these arteries, this accounts about 13% of the total blood volume, and these arteries further give rise to the branches called arterioles, and these arterioles further divided to give rise to different type of the capillaries. And these capillaries are mainly made up of only the single layer of endothelium, means tunica interna. So due to the very thin nature of this endothelium, the nutrients, different type of gases can easily diffuse out of the blood vessels into the interstitium. And once these nutrients, gaseous substance reaches in the cell, then the cell can perform its normal metabolic pathway, normal metabolic function to provide energy. And whenever this blood is deprived of the nutritious substances, gases, then this blood is taken up by the this venous system, these venules. These venules combine to form the single vein, and different veins throughout the body they combine to form the larger vein, which is called the inferior vena cava. And through this inferior vena cava, the blood is again taken to the right atrium, and the again the process repeats. And the circulation is divided into two types: pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. In normal condition, the pulmonary circulation accounts about 9% of the total blood volume, whereas the systemic circulation, it carries about 84% of the total blood volume. Whereas this heart, this accommodates only about 7% of the total blood during the circulation process. And this pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. What is this pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation? This pulmonary circulation is the circulatory pathway in which the blood from the this right ventricle is taken to the heart through this pulmonary artery, and in the lungs the uh, blood is purified, and this purified form of the blood is again taken back to the heart by the pulmonary veins. So this pathway is called the pulmonary circulation. But the systemic circulation is that part of the circulatory pathway or circulatory system in which the blood from the left ventricle is pumped to different part of the body, and through this different part of the body, this venous system brings the impure blood in the heart. This channels or this pathway of blood circulation is called this systemic circulation. So we have already discussed this system, and so there are lots of disorders that arises in a person if there is a lower concentration of the blood, or there is a, let's say, turbulent, or there is a hazard that flow of the blood in the blood vessels or circulatory system. But in the text, only these blood pressure, diabetes, and uric acid have been discussed in class 10 book. So we will discuss only on these disorders. On talking about the blood pressure, it is the lateral pressure on the blood vessel, uh, you know, and whenever there is contraction of the heart, mainly the left ventricles, then the blood is pumped on the aorta. During that process, what type of pressure is exerted or felt on the lateral wall of the aorta? This type of the pressure is called systolic pressure, and about that value of this systolic pressure is about 90 to 130 millimeters of the mercury. And once this aorta or arteries they are relaxed, then due to the elastic nature, means once they are relaxed, due to this elastic property, the arteries tends to uh, again return to their normal state. So that during that process also, uh, what type of pressure is exerted on the blood vessels, which we call the diastolic blood pressure. And the normal range of this blood pressure is about 60 to 90 millimeter of the mercury. And in normal condition, this systolic as well as diastolic pressure is represented by 120 by 80 millimeter of the mercury. In that case, 120 represent systolic blood pressure and 80 represent diastolic blood pressure. There are so many factors that can influence the normal value of the blood pressure, like if the uh, wall of this aorta is very much thickened so that the lumen become very narrowed. Against that narrowed lumen, the heart has to apply more force so that the more amount of the systolic pressure felt will be felt. That is, systolic pressure will get increased. This mainly occurs if a person includes more fatty diet uh, in his food daily intake, and other factors like stress, and that can also matters this systolic blood pressure. And similarly, diastolic blood pressure also depends on multiple factors, like if the elastic property of the this aorta is decreased either due to the aging or other factors, then the uh, value of this diastolic pressure will get altered. So the main technique to maintain this blood pressure in the normal range is to perform daily exercise, so that the fatty substances that we include in our diet, this will be utilized, and there won't be the deposition of these fatty substances or cholesterol in the blood vessel, in the so that the blood lumen won't get narrowed. and this will be very useful technique to maintain the blood pressure in its normal limit. On moving to the diabetes, this diabetes is a condition where there is increased level of the glucose in our blood. If we include high amount of the carbohydrates in our diet, then for transient period of time the blood glucose level might increase, but that is not called diabetes. It is physiological condition, it's normal condition. This diabetes is a condition where uh, the pancreas, the beta cells of the pancreas produce insulin, and this insulin is responsible to convert the excess amount of glucose of our blood into the glycogen and store that glycogen in the liver, and uses that glycogen during the time of the starvation or during the time of the hunger. But if uh, due to the congenital reasons or due to the genetic reasons, if the beta cells of the insulin uh, is absent, so that the excess amount of the glucose in the blood can't be converted into the glycogen. Due to that reason, the level of the glucose in the blood go on increasing. This condition is called diabetes. And in that diabetic condition, if the level of the glucose goes only on increasing the blood vessels, but the level of the glucose can't be utilized by the cells, so that the cells undergo starvation and it can't perform its normal function. Similarly, the blood can't supply the sufficient amount of the glucose to the different types of vital organs like brain, so that that can lead to the uh, confusion or faintness, likewise symptoms. And on moving to the uric acid, this uric acid, it is the in product of the metabolism of the purines, and this uric acid, these are excreted by the kidneys. But if there is kidney failures or other disturbances, then this uric acid level in the blood might get increased. And if its level increase in the blood, especially in the joints, then it can give rise to a severe pain. That condition is known as uric acid. So there are other things as well to discuss on that topic, but I don't think it is uh, worth to mention here. So we have completed the circulatory system of the human body. Now we will discuss few of the important MCQ questions so that you can tackle with them in your examination. Total number of the heart in human body, human heart, that is 4. We have already discussed this. Though in other animals like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, other number of the chambers of heart might be present, like in the fishes the number of the heart is about 2, means the chamber of the in their heart is 2, like in the amphibians it's 3, and in the reptiles it's 3.5, but with few exceptions like crocodiles, and in the birds and mammals the number of the heart, number of chambers in their heart is 4. And the rate of heartbeat in human beings, this normal rate of heartbeat in a human being is called a sinus rhythm, and it's about 72 times per minute, but this is not in our option, so we look for the nearest value of standard value, so that is a 75 times per minute. But this heart rate can increase or decrease according to the different physiological conditions or exercise, stress, or so many factors. But here we are concerning mainly with the normal heart, that is sinus rhythm of the heart. And we have already discussed the normal pathway of blood flow in the blood vessels in the heart. So if we move to the option number 1, then from left atrium to the right ventricle, that's wrong, because in normal condition, if the heart is normal and there are no any defective valves, then or any other openings among these chambers, then this won't occurs from the left atrium to the left ventricles in ideal condition from the left atrium, the blood should go in the left ventricle. So this is the wrong option. In right atrium to left ventricle, that's also not the correct option. And if we move to the C number option, then from left atrium to the left ventricle. So option C is the correct option. So systole of the heart causes this. Systole means there is contraction of the heart, and the diastole means the relaxation of the heart. As we have already discussed, during the systole of the heart, the blood is pumped to the outside from the heart to the different blood vessels. Like if the ventricles has been uh, contracted, then from the right ventricle the blood will be drained in the pulmonary artery, and similarly from the left ventricles the blood is pumped in the aorta. So during the systole of the heart, it causes the uh, exit of the blood from the that heart, not it heart, and exit of blood from the ventricles. Actually, this C option, exit of blood from heart, this also includes the atrium as well. If the atrium are contracted, then the blood will be drained in the ventricles, not from heart to the outside. So uh, the D is the better option than C, because from the ventricles the uh, blood is drained to the outside the heart. But if the atrium are contracted, then the blood will be drained in the ventricles. So this is the correct option. So a muscular wall is absent in, that is the capillaries, because if we talk about the structure of the arteries and veins, they are mainly made up of three layers, as we have already discussed: tunica externa, tunica media, and tunica interna, which is also called endothelium. But this capillary, this consists only of the endothelium, so it is very thin. Due to its very thin nature, the nutrients, gaseous substance can easily diffuse in the uh, tissues from the blood. So this capillary does not contain the muscular wall. It does not contain the tunica externa and the tunica media. So it is the right option. And you know that the arteries are responsible to carry the pure blood from the heart to the different part of the body, and veins are responsible to carry the impure blood from different part of the body to your heart. But there is exception where this pulmonary artery, though it is artery, it carries the deoxygenated or impure blood. So this pulmonary artery is the uh, artery which carries the deoxygenated blood. So this A option is the correct answer. And I have also explained that the normal rate of the heartbeat is called sinus rhythm. But due to different type of the disease condition or different type of the pathological conditions, this heart rate might get increased or decreased. If the heart rate is increased, it is called tachycardia. And if the heart rate is decreased, it is called bradycardia. So in the our questions, tachycardia is the rapid rate of the heartbeat. There are multiple factors like stress condition, like exercise, fearness, or other pathological conditions in the heart or in the nervous system or your kidney can also influence the normal rate of the heartbeat. But we will not be discussing these things here. So I want to tell another things now here in that question. Is the aorta gives rise to arteries, and arteries give rise to arterioles, and there's capillaries. As we move forward, the surface area increases, though the thickness of these structures of these or these blood vessels decreases, their surface area gradually increases. So here the capillaries have the largest surface area, though it has the thickest or the thinnest their wall, because it contains only the endothelium. So guys, we have prepared that video on the basis of these references like GRB Objective Zoology, Guyton Hall, Medical Physiology, and a textbook of class 10 prescribed by the Nepal government, Ministry of Health and Education. So thank you guys.